Maximum runway slope for takeoff and landing operations, plus 2% uphill and minus 2% downhill. Maximum tailwind component approved for takeoff and landing, 10 knots. Maximum approved airport pressure altitude for takeoff or landing, 12,000 feet. Aircraft serial number 5001 to 5059. Not having ASC 040, 14,500 feet. Aircraft serial number 5001 to 5059, having ASC 040, 14,500 feet. Aircraft serial number 5060 and subsequent, 15,000 feet. Aircraft serial number 5323 and subsequent plus HLFE PAX oxygen controller. Maximum operating altitude, 51,000 feet. Maximum altitude with a single air conditioning pack operating, 48,000 feet. Maximum operating altitude with a yaw damper inoperative, 45,000 feet. Maximum landing gear extension altitude, 20,000 feet MSL. Maximum altitude for extending flaps 39 degrees, 20,000 feet MSL. Maximum altitude for extending flaps 10 degrees or 20 degrees, 25,000 feet MSL. Minimum control speed air, 112 knots. Minimum control speed landing, 110 knots. Minimum control speed ground, 107 knots at sea level, 86 knots at 15,000 feet. Maneuvering speed, 206 knots. Flaps extended speeds. Flaps 10, 250 knots or 0.60 Mach. Flaps 20, 220 knots or 0.60 Mach. Flaps full, 170 knots or 0.60 Mach. Landing gear extended speeds, 250 knots or 0.70 Mach. Gear doors open or closed. Landing gear operation speeds, 225 knots per 0.70 Mach, normal operation. 175 knots, alternate operation. Maximum speeds with yaw damper inoperative. Above 10,000 feet, 260 knots or 0.80 Mach. Below 10,000 feet, 250 knots. Minimum speeds with yaw damper inoperative. Above 20,000 feet, 210 knots. Below 20,000 feet. Use reference table. Maximum speed with Mach trim or electric elevator trim inoperative, 0.80 Mach. Turbulence penetration speeds. Altitude 10,000 feet or above, 270 knots, 0.80 Mach, whichever is less. Below 10,000 feet, 240 knots. Maximum tire speed, 195 knots. Maximum speed with emergency stabilizer trim-armed, autopilot engaged in a jammed elevator, 270 knots or 0.80 Mach. Maximum zero fuel weight, 54,500 pounds. G5 maximum ramp weight, 90,900 pounds. G5 maximum takeoff weight, 90,500 pounds. G5 maximum landing weight, 75,300 pounds. G550 maximum ramp weight, 91,400 pounds. G550 maximum takeoff weight, 91,000 pounds. G550 maximum landing weight, 75,300 pounds. Maximum fuel imbalance in flight, 2,000 pounds. Proceed with fuel balancing before the fuel imbalance exceeds 1,000 pounds. Maximum cabin pressure differentials, 10.48 psi, 0.3 psi for taxi, takeoff, or landing. Internal baggage doors shall remain closed above 40,000 feet, limited to 5 minutes open. Single-engine autopilot-coupled go-around not approved. Minimum autopilot engage height, 200 feet. Minimum autopilot disengage height. Minimum disengage height is 60 feet from ILS, LPV, or MLS approach. Minimum disengage height for all other operations is 50 feet below DA or MDA. Use of auto-throttles on single-engine approach. Not permitted. Use of speed brakes with the HMG in operation. Slow operation. Approximately 3 seconds for full range of movement. Speed brakes not approved for extension in flight when flaps are at 39 degrees or landing gear extended. Takeoff is permitted with automatic ground spoilers inoperative, provided anti-skid is operative. 20 degrees of flaps are used. Cowl and wing anti-ice systems are not used. Usable fuel capacity, 41,300 pounds. Exceedance is permitted as long as the max ramp weight or max takeoff weight are not exceeded, and the loaded aircraft CG is within limits. Wing anti-icing must be turned on. If icing conditions are imminent or immediately upon detection of ice formation on wings, winglets, or windshield edges, cowl anti-icing is required on the ground. When the SAT is plus 10 degrees Celsius or below and visible moisture, precipitation, or wet runways are present, cowl anti-icing is required in flight. As indicated in the cowl anti-icing table, or when signs of icing are observed. Procedure to shed engine ice in flight is: quickly retard one engine at a time to idle, hold for 5 seconds, and then accelerate engine to 90% LP/RPM. The power lever may then be returned at its original position. Use of flaps while holding in icing conditions, not permitted. Takeoff is permitted with anti-skid inoperative, provided runway is dry. Ground spoilers are operative. 20-degree flaps are used. Cowl and wing anti-ice systems are not used. Do not operate radar during refueling of the airplane or when within 300 feet, 92 meters, of other refueling operations. Operation at other times. Do not operate radar within 49 feet, 15 meters, of ground personnel with 24-inch antenna installed. Localizer-based approaches must be flown using the following displayed and coupled navigation source: nav or green data. TCAS operation with one engine inoperative. Select TA only. The preferred method of engine Airstart is automatic. A current database is required in order to fly any approach procedure using the FMS. Maximum speed for RVSM operations. The maximum speed for RVSM operations is 0.87 Mach. Crew and passenger oxygen masks are not approved for use above 40,000 feet cabin altitude. Passenger masks will not provide sufficient oxygen for prolonged operation above 34,000 feet cabin altitude. Prolonged operation above 25,000 feet cabin altitude with passengers on board is not recommended. What is the engine starter duty cycle? The starter duty cycle is 3 start cycles with a maximum of 3 minutes per start cycle. Delay 15 seconds between start cycles. After 3 start cycles, wait 15 minutes before using the starter again. What limitations are associated with the thrust reversers? Cancellation should be initiated by 60 knots. Thrust reversers shall be deployed and stowed at least once every 100 hours. Thrust reverser use for power back is not approved. Thrust reverser use of idle thrust during taxi is available without any limits. If thrust reversers are used to bring the aircraft to a halt during an emergency, report it to maintenance. Dispatch with inoperative thrust reversers on a wet runway requires the available runway be reduced by 1,400 feet or the accelerate stop distance increased by 1,400 feet. APU starting limits on battery power. 3 consecutive start attempts, followed by 1 hour cooldown. APU starting limits on external DC power. 3 start attempts, 15 minutes between each attempt. Maximum APU operating altitude, 45,000 feet. APU generator electrical load limit, 100% 40 kVA, sea level to 45,000 feet. Maximum TGT prior to ground start, 150 degrees. Maximum TGT for takeoff, 900 degrees Celsius, 5 minutes with both engines, 10 minutes on one engine. Maximum Continuous TGT, 860 degrees, no time limitation. Maximum Crosswind component for engine start, 30 knots. Maximum Tailwind component for engine start, 20 knots. Stabilized engine operation on the ground, static, prohibited between 66 and 80% LPRPM.